Hello, Deskwarmers. This is Matthew speaking. I'm editing this video and I realize that there are some pretty egregious and unsightly frame rate issues that run throughout this entire episode, which is very unfortunate. Our guest, Javier, today has some really funny stories to tell, and I apologize to him that the frame rate is just... it's really bad. And for all you listeners out there who enjoy watching us, I also apologize because this might be one you just want to leave on in the background or maybe close your eyes because the audio sounds great. It's just kind of hard to look at. You'll see what I mean. Thanks for listening and enjoy the episode if you can. Hello and welcome back to the Deskwarmers Podcast. My name is Matthew.
And I'm Ike. Hello, everyone.
Ike, it has been way too long, hasn't it?
We had such a good streak. We were like 5.5 months of just every week uploading, Matthew.
I know. It was so good, but, everyone's got to take a break. And, I think I was pretty busy. I've heard you were busy as well.
Yes, I had an enormous amount of vacations, trips, things going on. I went to Boston with my mom for Mother's Day. That was fun. I went to Vegas for some work trips. I made about 6 pizzas because I do have a uni in my backyard now, which is amazing.
Okay.
Some homemade Neapolitan pizza. Neapolitan pizza. There you go. So a lot going on, Matthew. What about you?
Yeah, well, I actually wrote down 5 things that I did.
Okay.
So I finished up my job as a substitute teacher. That's what I was doing on the side, end of semester. I went to a trade show in Chicago concerning the restaurant business and industry. That was kind of interesting. I met the Kool-Aid Man. I judged a debate tournament also in Chicago where my high schoolers did really well in the debate tournament, so shout out to them. I lost my wallet also in Chicago, and I've been working through getting all of my money back and replacing all my ID cards. And last but not least, I took my computer in to finally get it repaired, my PC. So hopefully my editing timeline for this podcast can be a little more efficient when I get that back up and running. But Ike, This isn't a show about our day-to-day lives, is it?
As much as we would like it to be, it's a lot more fun when we have someone else to save us, to make the content more interesting, I'll say. No.
To make the content definitely more interesting by having them on and by kind of bringing us back to Japan and our times as ALTs. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Javier to the show. Welcome in.
Hey.
Hello.
How's
Javier.
it going? Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we're so
Big
glad
fan,
to have you on.
by the way.
Big fan.
Yes.
Yes. So
I'm
can
sure
I
you
say
were...
I'm the first fan to be on here? Is that since you have the first, right?
We need the first.
We need a first. Yeah, I think. Well, you're definitely the first person to bring up that we need a first of something. And I think you might actually be the first
I think
fan
you guys
as well.
brought it.
I don't know. But why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name's Javier. I grew up in the Central Valley, and I was a Central Valley of California. Sorry, I know you guys go worldwide. I ended up teaching in Japan for 5 years, from 2009 to 2004. So, and I was actually I was in the same city as you. So in Kumamoto, and great place. Had a blast, and now I'm back here. I'm teaching English at a middle school in California.
Nice. One of our great predecessors, I guess.
Yeah.
He goes a few years back.
Yes, which I mean, if you think about that, my Tantosha was the first ALT in our town. So
wow, that's crazy.
that is, it was kind of nice to have somebody that, so he was the original.
Yeah,
nice,
yeah.
so.
You know, it is insane, actually. Very short tangent, but I was just out the other day and someone came up to me because I was wearing like a shirt that had sake on it, and he was like asking about Japan and stuff, and he was one of the first years of JET. So he was from like 1980 or 70 or something like that, like one of the very first years. Yeah. And so it's probably similar to that, where not necessarily first to our city, but just first as a whole group going. And it was so still cool that we could, you know, connect on that level. I feel like there is a decent, almost like alum program, or just like everyone has that bond, right? Like even if we didn't meet you while we were in Japan, we all went through some of the same experiences. So
yeah,
I think.
Yeah. It's what one of my friends would say. It's a shared trauma that we all have. It's just
trauma bonding.
Like in the army, it's just like a band of brothers. Like,
band of brothers. Oh my God, I'm watching that right now.
Yeah.
And as some other friends, some of your new friends like to say, many situations are similar. So those situations of trauma are probably also going to be shared. I don't know.
Yes.
I did yes. love that though, because it felt like as soon as we get tossed in, we talk a lot on this podcast how we were able to make a lot of friends and people that had similar interests. But like you were saying, Javier, it really went one step further, where we were constantly just like talking about the different work experiences that we went through, because we all had the same job at the end of the day, right? And so we all had very similar things going on with us that we wanted to complain about or vent a little bit, you know, because there is a lot of things that definitely some trauma induced, you know.
Yeah. One of the problems that I have is like I'll try to tell somebody's story and then it just ends up being one of those you had to be there kind of things, because there's just that, and I'm just like, oh, all right, don't bring it up anymore. So
yeah.
No, some of what they tell
but
you.
But with you,
oh yeah, what were you saying?
Oh, with you, I could bring it up because you'll know, right? It's just,
no, that's
I'm sure.
That's absolutely true. At the what was it? What's the opposite of orientation? At like the closing group meeting. I don't know. It's like you're leaving JET and they're going through all this information, things you need to know, your send-off meeting, something like that. You know, in between information about, okay, here's your flight, and like, here's what to expect when moving, something like that. One of the biggest things that they touched on was like, when you get back to America, please expect that not everyone's going to care that you did the JET program or wants to listen to all of your various stories. Like, people who have been through the program definitely do, like it's kind of exactly that trauma bond, but I found that to be really funny and actually pretty true.
Yes.
Yeah. I think people are interested when you say you lived abroad for a few years, you know, but then at a certain point they can't understand on that same level, you know. So, but I think it is a good fact to definitely have, or just a fun story, and definitely an experience worth doing if you're able to. So
yeah, definitely.
I think we can all agree on that. But
all right, so Javier, back in our town in Kumamoto, you said did you say this? Were you with the city or the prefecture?
Oh, city, yeah.
Okay.
I was teaching elementary and so elementary and middle school. Yes.
Cool.
Nice.
So
different from your middle schoolers now.
That's a funny thing. Like I was, first off, I had like no intention to go teach in Japan. I really didn't have an interest in Japan. I was teaching high school 10th grade and 12th grade English and just having fun with that. But then I kind of wanted to get some more life experience. And so I was like, I want to teach abroad. You know, I did a Europe trip, you know, backpacking. And I said, I kind of want to get somewhere outside of the U.S., basically. And then I wanted to go back to Mexico and teach, teach English over there and just kind of get back to my roots, improve my Spanish. Mm-hmm. And my parents were like, "Are you crazy? Why do you think we left? It's dangerous over there, And I said, okay, well, in my search for places to teach in Europe, places to teach in Mexico, JET program kept coming up. And then I was like, okay, well, how about Japan? And they were like, well, you don't speak the language, and it's so far away. And I said, well, you didn't speak the language, and it was really far away when you came here, so this is my immigrant experience.
Good point.
And I was going to be a 1-year JET. That was my goal. Just to be, all right, I could do 1 year. Just go out there, teach a year, and then come back. And I ended up staying 5, actually.
Yeah.
So I did the whole term.
Wow.
I feel like that happens fairly often, though, where you really come in with some expectation or understanding of, your ideal timeline or how long you want to stay, or just some people, I imagine, come wanting to stay forever, right? And then once they're there, either that becomes true or their reality really shifts. So, but you're definitely in the, I guess, one of the few people we've had on the podcast that hasn't gone to Japan, for Japan. They've been wanting to go just for a, experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I think that is definitely, like, I'm sure the JET program is looking equally for those people as well, right? So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had teaching experience. So, I mean, that's one thing that I've noticed when, the people that go to JET, they do have a job teaching, right? And so I was also kind of thinking, I would also teach, like, lessons on how to teach, how to do your Jiko Shokai, and which I love doing. It was just fun to kind of help, people grow in the job of being a JET, right?
I don't know. I think you might be the perfect JET candidate. Like someone who's not like
the enthusiasm is there.
They love teaching. They know how to teach. They like Japan. They don't necessarily know everything about Japan. They might not know anything about Japan, but they're there to help the rest of the other teachers, ALTs, along.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I had 0 Japanese when I went there. Like, I mean, like at the orientation, they have the beginners Japanese class.
Yeah.
Like, I was the worst from that class. Like, I've started to feel like, oh my God, I made a terrible choice. I don't, like, these people actually studied. I didn't.
Oh.
So I was really panicking at that point. At the airport, the lady was like speaking to me in Japanese, and my response was "sí," because in Spanish. Because I was like,
"Yes."
My brain was like, "That's not English. It must be Spanish."
No, I'm so glad you said that, because I related to that so much, because I had taken like 10 years of Spanish. I was never that good. I think I've talked about this a little bit, but basically my brain could only flip, one way. And so for the longest time, it's like not English, so it has to be this other language I know in my head, but it doesn't really work that way.
It's all just Gaikokugo.
Yes.
I mean, we come from the land of Gaikoku, so.
Yeah.
But I love that experience for you. And I mean, since we're kind of on the topic already, what did you kind of do at your desk then? What was the Deskwarming experience like for you if you came into the JET program?
Well, my first year, the 1 year that I was going to stay, I said, I'm not going to study Japanese. Why? I'm going to miss out on some experiences.
Yeah.
My whole thing was like, hey, do you want to go see a volcano? Yes. Right? Do you want to dance in this Matsuri? Yes. My whole thing was like, because I'm not going to be here for next year, so I won't get the chance again, right?
Yeah.
And like,
good mindset.
I mean, it was like the first week that I was there, I was dancing in a Matsuri, the yearly festival where you just dance and drink, and so that, but so I wasn't studying Japanese as most people who'd say, but I really wanted just to talk to the teachers, right, and be a part of the school. Well, going back to that, like I was a high school teacher before.
Yeah.
And then going into elementary, I was like, wait, why did they put me in high school? Like I put in my resume, I was a high school teacher. It's like, I don't know what to do with, teaching, sixth graders and third graders. And I was like, I don't want to be a babysitter, but tell you what, I really liked it. I liked the energy they have, the, enthusiasm. It was great. So, I really tried to be part of my school. So, talking to some of the at the middle school, talking to it's the Kokugo sensei. What would that be? The
high school teachers. The classroom, homeroom,
the Japanese
homeroom.
So the literature teachers, right?
Yeah.
So
there we go.
Talking to them, I mean, even explaining to them, saying like, okay, they would ask me like, what did you teach over? And I'd say I would teach English, and they're like, oh, just like a JET, like you would teach English as a second language, and I was like, no, I was like, America no Kokugo.
Yeah.
So it was. I was like, it was just like literature.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean that makes sense. That's a comparison that totally makes sense. But that's kind of funny that you had to make that comparison. Like, no, I was you, but in America doing English.
Yeah.
Even for the teachers, they don't always understand. I feel like so.
Yeah.
But.
And so one of my favorite things was to actually ask them their favorite book. And so I got a lot of good recommendations from there. And then I would try to find the translated copy of that book, and then it would give me something to talk to them about. One of my favorites was the Pillow book. I don't know. It was like one of the first books ever. It's Seisho Nagon.
Like one of the first written books ever?
Yeah, it was like one of the first written, and one of the interesting things in this book is that she writes it out, and she has this like list in it, and it's like things that bring me peace, and then she'll start listing things, and so I would like joke around with one of the teacher that shared that with me, and then I would like kind of start showing him my lists of things that make me irritated, and so he would just so it started to build that community, right?
Have either of you watched Severance? This is giving me very Severance vibes.
Ooh, no.
It's a great show. I recommend everyone to watch it.
Yeah,
but
I see what you mean.
There's a therapist in that book, and she's like, what makes you happy? Or she like basically says things that are like, this is what you enjoy doing and stuff. So it's similar to that on a very personal level. But now wait, I have to clarify this too. If you had no Japanese skills, you weren't learning Japanese, but you're teaching or you're talking with these Japanese literature teachers, how did that communication work?
Well, that was through the Japanese teacher. I would start off with the Japanese or the JTE, right?
Okay.
So the Japanese teacher of English.
Yeah.
So it was always, through translation for that first year, but that was probably later on when I actually got to having a good conversations.
Yeah, when you can start really talking about the books and the in-depth, not just the, I read this today, I liked it. End of sentence.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, a high level of language speaking to be able to express your opinion fully or to talk on a, highly educated level about some book they recommended. So you're not jumping into just like, how was the weather today?
Yeah, well, to be honest, that wasn't my first year, so it's all a blur. To be like, this is 10 years ago, so
sure.
But I do remember one time one of the Japanese the Kokugo sensei took me to this meetup of writers, and so they were all in a park writing haikus. And I was just like. And then they would like walk around the park, and it was like springtime, so
Yeah.
the cherry blossoms and the the plums were blooming, and then they would all come back together, and then they would read to each other, and I was like,
That's cool.
I just understood cherry blossom and water, and that's it.
No, but that is so sick.
Then,
I mean, especially in haikus, though, they're not going to be using like perfect, Japanese, because they're trying to make it eloquent. They're trying to make it poetic. So it's like, I don't think unless you're like, N1, N2, you're going to start understand. It's like listening to a Japanese song, right? Like that's pretty difficult to translate as well. So. But that's a really cool experience. Did you do haikus as well? Would you make them too?
Well, yes, I would write with them, but in English.
Okay.
There was no way I would do it in Japanese.
Yeah.
So
they'd go around and then it'd be your turn.
And then I'd say it in English, and then they would kind of do like a rough translation, and then be like, but it's in haiku. It's in the syllable structure.
Sure. That's so
I definitely
funny.
had to teach my students what syllables were. I know I had a unit on that as well. And I was teaching them the like clapping method, because that's what I use. And so I had the whole class like clapping to the different words to try to figure it out. And then I think we did make them write a haiku, but they weren't great, I'll say. My students' haikus weren't great.
Not everyone's a writer. Javier, was that group? Was that a school related? Like, did you go with your teacher to that haiku thing?
It was not school related. It was just a community that he had outside of his, and he was such a cool guy. Like, he had a cane, and his cane had like this really cool design on it. That's one of the things that I remember the most. But he would walk around with a cane, and very kind of a bit standoffish, but I was able to talk to him a little bit, and he invited me, so I was like, yeah, sure, I'll go. And so, but one of the really cool senses that I met out there.
Yeah,
he was just a tsundere at heart. I'm sure he had a soft, warm inside. Yeah, just the cold exterior,
Probably, yeah,
definitely.
It's just all front.
I just really like those community event type things that you get pulled into. Like I know we had our fair share of certain things with our English teaching group, or our Japanese learning group. I always mix that up.
Yeah.
And like the
we talked about that a little bit as well. But we would do a lot of different things to try to get more involved in our city, but I feel like you can always do more, right? As well. Like there's always a lot of things going on around you. Yeah. And it's some of them are more catered towards like actual Japanese, citizens or whatever, but I think even those, they're usually like definitely happy if you show up for them as well. Like, I imagine those people didn't expect a foreigner to show up for their haiku session. But
and totally glad
I could
to
see
have
them. Oh yeah, that's so I could totally see them enjoying that experience.
Well, I wasn't invited back, so I don't know if they were too happy. So
they only did it once. That's the thing.
That's okay. I only got.
They never had it again.
I only had one nomikai invite, so I'm pretty depressed about that.
In 3 years,
in 3 years, I got invited once, and I remember as well. The one time I got invited, I had like just arrived, basically. It was like my welcome party. Although it wasn't for me. They just decided that they were nice enough to invite me because I had arrived, But I remember Quinn and I, because Quinn was another one of the ALTs our city, driving down our little road, and we see our teachers having a nomikai. Literally, like, they're all standing outside of this bar, and we like rolled down our window, and we're like, oh, like Matsumoto sensei, what's up? We're like, what's going on? And her face was priceless. She got caught basically, and it was all the English teachers too. It was all the English teachers. Like, it was so sad.
No.
Yeah. I never got the invite again. I thought it was fun. I went to the Nijikai, the second party. But
the Nijikai is where you really show your
I
true
probably
personality.
ruined it because I sung karaoke, so that probably that could have been why they didn't invite me back.
Like, we had one too many Tokyo Ghoul anime opening covers.
Okay, I was actually so upset too because none of the other teachers would sing. They were basically just like, Ike Sensei, and then they would clap. They wouldn't even sing with me, like while I'm singing, because usually when me and Matthew and our friends went to karaoke, we would like sing together if we knew the song, right? And I think in Japan, karaoke, at least from my experience, is a little different. Is like you're there to show off how good you are at singing. Mm-hmm. It's not like a community event where you're all just like having fun. It's a one-man show, and so. Even though I'm an awful singer and I'm singing my heart out and all the teachers are just clapping, at the end, they're all still too embarrassed to go. And they're just like, all right, Ike, one more song. And it was a public karaoke too. So there was like one other booth. There was one other booth that was singing. And so we would just like alternate. It was basically just me singing a song and then they would sing a song. And my one teacher, we had to keep cutting in place too because they would cue like 50 songs. And so after we would let them sing like one or two, we would skip our song into the middle there.
Oh, that's awkward.
To let it play. Yeah. But
Well, let me tell you my most awkward karaoke experience. It was Nijikai after a wedding, and the bride and groom were like these professional musicians. So they were like, Javier, and it's from a friend that I knew, and they invited me to the wedding. We go to the Nijikai karaoke, and they start singing, they're like opera singers. Like, no, legit, like, professional opera singers. Whoa. And they're like, Javier, sing. And I was like, no way I can sing that. Like, I can't sing. First of all, I'm tone deaf. I'm a terrible singer. I know that. So they were like, how about Hey Jude? And I was like, sure?
Yes.
Okay.
The English song everyone knows.
But yeah,
I could do that one.
But yeah, it's like, it was Ave Maria, and then like a really good Ave Maria, and then me singing Hey Jude. And, luckily they helped out with the na-na-na-na part, kind of thing. But then I was like, okay, here you go. Don't give me the mic back again. I just want to drink. So.
That's so funny. I talked a little bit, I think in a different episode, the band that I had with me and Steven and Aiden, we sang Hey Jude in front of a community center full of people. And it's like, as soon as those na-na-na-nas come on, everybody's involved. Every single person's involved. That's when it really gets fun. But the rest of the English lyrics, they have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. That and the Carpenters, for some reason, was like really popular. Everybody knew the Carpenters.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of their song that was really popular.
I can't think of their songs either, but they were like, do you know Carpenters? It's like, no, I don't.
That's really
funny. And then it starts playing, though.
I'd be walking through like Eon grocery store, and they're playing Carpenters, the Hollies, sometimes Beach Boys. They're playing like 60s bops. They're playing 60s jams. And I'm like getting my bread, getting my like rice, and I'm like, I know this song.
See, I always just liked hearing like the anime songs in the grocery store or just like on the radio.
Of course.
I was like, this is why I came to this country,
Javier can't relate.
I got to hear. Yeah, Javier can't relate. No.
Yeah. I mean, well, once I got here, they started giving me like my best friend Stephanie. She was just like, "What? You don't know this?" I was like, "No." She's like, "All right, here's Cowboy Bebop," and I was like, "Oh, this is great," So it was. So Cowboy Bebop was like my first anime, I guess.
Do you remember what anime was like big at the time when you were there, like with the students at all?
Like like a popular manga as well, because usually those would be out.
Durarara.
Durarara.
Durarara. I think. I don't know. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
That one, I mean, Shingeki no Kyojin just started when,
Oh, yeah?
when I was there. Or towards the end, like 2014, 2013. So that was around there. So, yeah. But yeah, it's just...
Yeah. I know, Matthew, you can relate to this, I'm sure, that for us, Oshinoko, the manga, was very popular in anime. And
Tokyo Revengers, all those kids love Tokyo Revengers.
Oh, I hate that. I don't like literally.
It either.
But no, what I wanted to say though is like I learned the phrase oshi, which is like my idol basically, or like the thing you like look up to. And so we literally had like a whole unit in our class about what your oshi was, and you got to like draw it and like write it in English. Like you had to write like a paragraph about your oshi. But they didn't ever translate that part, so it would literally just be like, "What is your oshi?"
My oshi is.
Yeah, it's like my.
That's not a word in English, but we can pretend.
Yeah, but it's funny though. It definitely shapes your time there as well. Like what's very popular because all of the kids are like, on some show or all on the same page there.
Yeah, I mean, but that's your connection to them, right? Like, that's how you get to them so that you can be like, all right, hey, we're talking about this, and here's some English.
Yeah, it's certainly a way in. It's certainly a way in to connect. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Javier, I know you said you had also joined some of the clubs at your school to try to get closer to the students.
Oh, yeah. So it was part of, like, my community service that I kind of decided upon myself. Okay. I'll talk about that later in a bit. I did kind of start joining. There are a ton of clubs that the city has. There's a ton of clubs that, like, I joined a cycling club, and and this was just talking to people that worked at the city hall, and talking to them that, hey, I did some cycling when I was back home. And he's like, really? You should get a bike and come on out and join us. And the first weekend when I finally get my bike, and he's like, yeah, meet me here, or meet me over at this park at like 6 a.m. I get there and there was like a ton of bikes. It was a race. Like it was a full-on race.
Oh my god!
And it was like a 62-mile race that I didn't sign up for. I didn't have a number tag or anything.
62.
And he was like, "Yeah, just follow me." And I was like, "Okay." So like at the little stops, and I was dead. I was like hadn't cycled in a while, so I get to the first, stop, and he's like, here, have some food. And I'm like, I really shouldn't be taking this. Like, I didn't prepare. But they were...
Did you make the whole time? Did you do it?
No, I turned around halfway through. I was like, hey, this is too much for me, so thanks for inviting me. But I really kind of joined their little line group, and then they would have Saturday morning bike rides, and I got to see the entire Ken. Like there was this just some of the most beautiful scenic area. The mountain roads in Japan are something that really need to be cycling. Japan is awesome. There are so many bike paths, and then motorists really kind of expect bikes, so they do kind of respect you while you're there. Not here in the US. It's a little scarier here, but yeah. That was one of the clubs.
Even doing half of that distance is crazy because I had to bike 8 miles the other day and I was so exhausted. Even just 8 miles, I was done, KO'd. Yeah. So that's a crazy experience just showing up. But I appreciate that attitude too, of just saying yes and trying.
Well, I kind of had to bike everywhere. I had to.
You had to? Did you not have a car?
I did for a while. So I actually have a Menkyo Center story for you guys as well.
Okay.
I love the Menkyo Center stories.
So I was only planning to stay for a year, and so I really didn't want to buy a car, but then after I decided and signed up for another year, I was like, okay, I need to buy a car because our Board of Education would start you off in the center of town, and then the older jets will get sent out further and further, and the newer jets come into the center. So you would switch up schools.
Oh, interesting.
And so they said, well, Javier, you're staying another year. We're going to put you at further out schools, so you might want to get a car. I was like, okay. So
I don't know if they do that anymore either, though. I think they might have stopped that practice by the time you got... Because now they'll specifically assign people... Like if, for example, Sam, she only had a bike, and so she would basically get first priority on like the closest schools. So I know that they have halted that practice at least. Maybe the Tantosha changed as well.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it's heavily reliant on who your superior is, I guess.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, we would change schools like almost every year or two, so it was kind of tough. You would get to meet a lot of teachers, but it was and so they were like, okay, well, we're going to be pushing you further out, and you might want to get a car. Well, my host family helps me find a car, and I'm having a blast. Great. Driving around Japan was really nice. And then I have to go take a test. I bought the car in June. July went, took my test, failed.
Classic.
August came around, failed again.
Okay.
And I want to add, I do have a theory that it's just like collecting money because I think they're like, because you have to pay like
alone.
$50.
That's so true.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I say like, hey, make it $100, make it $300, and then give us as many tries as we like. Like,
yeah.
Or even just pass us on the first try for $300.
Pass us when we make it. Pass us when we actually comply and do all the things, and don't mark us down for like weird reasons, weird things that we didn't even know. Yeah.
That point system is insane. But you're definitely not alone in this theory, because my theory was that they only would pass one foreigner every day. So they would just choose the group of between 6 to 10 people. They would just choose one person every day. Mm-hmm. And no matter how good the second best person was, they would only choose one person, was my theory. So there's definitely some sort of conspiracy going on here.
Yeah, because I thought I had some really good or good shots at it. I was like, I think I did fairly well. And by like the third time, I was just like, all right, I need to start saying, Kuruma Nash, Yosh, really be intentional about like what I'm looking at, and like, I would joke around with our friends and be like, as I would be driving, and be like, Neko Nash, cats, just let's go, there's no old ladies there, let's go, it's clear. But so the third time, me and my buddy, we go out and take the test. We fail. And I'm like, all right. We get back into our car. We start heading out of the Menkyo Center. And then one of the guys comes out and he's like, hey, stop. I was like, and then I was seriously thinking, I was like, maybe we did pass and they made a mistake.
You had that hope in your heart.
He was like, yeah. And so he goes, hey, let me see, stop the car, and basically said, like, let me see your license. I was like, oh, okay, here you go. So I had my my international driver's license, right, and handed him that, and handed him my gaijin card, and then he's like, let's go inside. I was like, okay. Oh, no. So he actually tells me to get in the back of the car, in the back of my own car, and he drives the car back into the parking lot. And I was just like, okay. Okay, this is interesting. So this, we were about to go get lunch, so I was already starving.
Yeah.
And at this point, we're like, okay, I wonder how long this is going to take, So we go back inside, and then they're having a discussion, and then this was the end of my first year, so I knew a couple words in Japanese, but not much. And my friend that was with me, he goes, hey, they're saying your international driver's license isn't valid. I was like, what? What are you talking about? Like, it expires the 29th or something, and they're like, yeah, but no, he's saying it's not valid. I was like, okay. Well, they go back and they're like, where do you work? So they actually call my work, and they're like, hey, your ALT here is driving on invalid international driver's license, and so they have to come we go from the Menkyo Center. They're like, okay, we're gonna take you to the station. And I was like, okay. So they took me. So I'm thinking like, well, they'll just call somebody to come pick up the car, but it's valid. It says it's valid. It was like 2 days before the expiration date that was written on the international driver's license.
Yeah. Okay.
And so like we go and then we see the cop car that's waiting for us.
They had called the cops to pick you up.
Yeah. Well, I think there's some cops that actually work at the Menkyo Center. I don't know. It was, but as we're going in there, like the cops kind of like look at me and my friend, and my friend John was, he's it was his like third or fourth year, and he's pretty fluent in Japanese, and he was like explaining or talking to them, and like they were like about to cuff us, but they didn't really know. They were like, should we put cuffs on him?
Oh my gosh.
Like,
they had like the handcuffs out, like, huh?
Yeah. What? Yeah, like, should we cuff
They
them?
needed a manager to decide. They needed to call their manager to decide.
Oh, of course.
And I'm so thankful that one of the cops was just like, nah, they're okay. Like, don't worry. They're not dangerous.
What, are you guys gonna run?
Okay. I was like, okay. So they take us down to the station, and like they put us like in an interrogation room, like
with the one-way glass.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm pretty sure it did have the one-way glass. It had a small little desk. It had a tiny little light. I don't even remember if there was like a dusty ceiling fan, but I just kind of think about
they
that.
were
like
intimidating you. They were trying to.
Things like no, and I do remember that it was one of the few places in Japan where I saw tagging and like graffiti, because like the desk had stuff like carved into it, and I was like, oh my god, like what is it? Because it stood out. Because I don't know. Did you ever have this feeling where you're in Japan and you're like, it's so clean here, like there's no graffiti, and then you go to Korea and you're like, oh wow, graffiti, and you're
you're taking pictures of Korea. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I know exactly the feeling.
So we were sitting in there, and and they bring a interpreter. Let me throw in some air quotes on that one, because I tell you, like, this guy like didn't really speak. It was like the guy that had the best grade in English in high school. They were like, hey. There's some English speaking perps over here that we gotta, let's call so and so over here. He did well in English, and like I was like, but I am so thankful for my friend John, who did most of the translation. He was like, hey, they're saying that you knowingly drove with the expired license or expired international driver's license. I was like, well, no, it's not. It's look at the date on there. Like, why wouldn't it be driving on it if it wasn't?
Yeah.
Well, the rule is that your international driver's license is valid from the day you enter Japan. 1 year from the day that you enter Japan. And I remember at the AAA, wherever you get the
AAA
international driving permit, they ask you
when do you want it to start?
When do you want it to start? Yes.
They asked me the same question.
Yeah, and so I was like, I'm not going to be driving the first day. Like, have it start on the end of the month. If at all, I'm probably not going to be driving at all. So I guess that's where my mistake was. But I still fill, like, because they had me fill out, a statement.
Sure.
And it's all in Japanese. And they read it back to us, and my friend John was saying, "It says you knowingly drove with an expired license."
They were trying to get you.
Yeah. What's Japan's conviction rate? It's like
95%.
99?
Yeah.
So then I was like, no. Like, I didn't know. Like, look at the date on there.
Yeah.
I'm driving with that because of the dates that's on there, and so we get them to kind of change it a bit, and luckily John was able to kind of help them revise it.
Let's go, John.
But
yeah,
and then so you have to put your thumbprint or one of your fingerprints onto it as yes, this is true. And so they called my board of education. My board of education had to come and pick us up.
Wow.
And so they called someone to come pick us up, and I think they do that like with students as well. If like students get in trouble, they call their school. Mm-hmm. They'll call the students' school.
Yeah.
And I didn't. Yeah. And so they'll have like the teachers go and pick up the homeroom teacher go and pick up the students.
The homeroom teacher. Did your JTE
so it was just
come and
like
pick
that.
you up?
No, it was the board of education. It was all people from the board of education.
It's a good thing that they let you out though, as well. Like, I would be worried about them holding you for longer or something.
They're allowed to.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they are. And, I was starving at that point, so I would have almost signed anything to get out of there and just be like...
That's a tactic.
But, yeah, it was a very...
So what was the resolution? They let you out and they never came back for you?
It was a very quiet ride back into our town. And then we had to meet with the head of the Board of Education, which... this guy, we were all fans of him because he would just smile all the time, and just be super happy guy. Mm-hmm. And he was just dead face. And he was like, "What happened?" And I was like, I was driving. Here's my international driver's license. Like, here's the date. I should have been good, but they said I wasn't because of the 1 year rule. And they were like, which that kind of calmed him down a bit,
Yeah.
And then he was like, okay, now we have to go apologize to like the city. So we go over to go apologize to the city, and I was like, do I have to do the full on like ground bow?
Don't guess up.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
wow.
To go back to how bad my Japanese was at that point, like speaking to the main guy, I was like, "Honto ni gomen." And so which I don't know.
That's funny.
How would you explain that? That's like just telling like
sorry
instead of
sorry.
Like sorry, my bad.
No, really, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Which John kind of looks at me and he's like, "You have to say gomenasai the whole thing." Yeah. And I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
So so my tantosha at that time, he's like, "All right, you better start saving up money because there's probably going to be a fine with this." Oh. And I was like, "Oh, okay. Do you know how much?" He goes, "It's going to be a lot." So he's like, "Probably don't do anything for a month." And I loved my tantosha. Ray is just one of the best people I ever met.
Shout out Ray.
He's the one that was the first ALT there, right? And
okay.
He kind of started like telling me, "Hey, look, you could have a court case, but there is arbitration where you just send the case to a judge and they decide off of the facts."
I would not trust that. I would not trust that. Well, I told him, "Okay, be honest with me, Ray. What's the
what's the best chance for me to stay here, because I don't want them to send me home. I just signed up for another year.
Yeah, for something stupid like that.
It's
crazy.
And he goes, well, just send it to arbitration, because if it goes to a court case, there it might pick up some news and it might be bad publicity. And so that is what we don't want. And I was like, okay, Ray, I'll just bite the bullet. And like, was it 2 months later? They didn't even send the response to me. They sent it to my work, to the Board of Education.
And I'm sure your whole school, like all of your schools knew about this too, I would imagine.
Yeah. Like, I did get like some stink eye from people afterwards and be like, what? Like, yeah. I was just like, what? No, man, it was still good. Like,
there's no level of secrecy, whether it be your medical history or like your lawfulness. Like, everything gets shared with everyone in the school. So
wow.
Yeah,
and so like 2 months later, document comes in and it says, from the case, the plaintiff, or I don't know what you're being fined. It was basically a month's salary. So it was like, need you, man. So it's just, so I was just like, ouch.
Yeah, but like $1,800 or something.
Yeah. And so at that point I was just like, okay, all right, there we go. But I actually still have the document with me, so I kept that.
Frame
it was just like, just being so angry.
You actually got arrested.
But yeah, I think so. And so, I mean, I still don't know. Detained, maybe? I don't know. I kind of.
They charged you.
Yeah, and then, well, I just read this. Like, I recently looked at the document not too long ago, and it says if the defendant is unable to pay in full, I did a Google Translate of this, and he will be detained in a labor camp for equivalent of 5,000 yen per day.
So, the labor camp?
Pay it off. Yeah. Like, I could have been sent to a labor camp
for 5,000 yen per day.
Yeah, so paying the 2 months, it would have been like a month or more than a month to pay it off.
A month in the salt mines or something, or on a rail track picking up trash.
See,
that's crazy.
All I can say is when that Joshi Kosei, when that high school girl hit my car, I'm so glad I didn't call the police. That's one of the best decisions I made.
With her bike?
It was like
when she hit you?
She hit me. And I was like, I'm not going to call the police because
no way.
Like, I was like, this is going to, everyone in the whole entire city will know.
Yeah.
It's going to be an endless process. Like, I'm going to have to do like all this, paperwork, procedures, like all this stuff. I was like, I have a month left in Japan. I am not like putting anything here. Right.
Yeah.
Like, it was similar stuff like that where it's just like, if you can legally, get away or just like not have to report something, it's same thing like with your insurance, right, or whatever. Like, do you want to report the accident because then your insurance is going to go up, like everything like that.
You're gonna get some money, but
you really gotta weigh those.
I had a run-in with the old Keisatsu with the police. I don't know if I've told this story on the podcast before. I didn't get arrested, but it was funny.
Not as bad as Javier.
I was on my way back from Thailand, actually. I was flying through Fukuoka Airport, and I was trying to get back down to Kumamoto to catch a connecting flight that would take me to Tokyo to get back to America for my sister's wedding. And I'm going through that awful, awful Fukuoka interchange toll road. Like, the tolls come up, then you have to make a split-second decision, like, okay, do I want to go this way to go downtown, or do I want to take the expressway downtown? I hate that stop, and there's traffic all the time. So I'm going from the airport in through that toll booth area, and traffic's really heavy, but, like, as soon as I get to the, like, toll intro thing, I see like a lane open, and I'm like, oh my god, this is perfect. This is my chance to get around all these cars. So I go into that extra toll booth lane, and I don't have an IC reader.
Oh, the chip.
I don't have a chip, so I have to stop and like I have to pay cash and everything. And as soon as I get my money back from the change guy, I like start driving a little bit, and I see like 3 police officers to my left running from the side of the road across a few lanes of traffic, closed roads because the toll booths next to me were closed, running from the side, like telling me to stop. And I'm like, oh my God. Like I was just coming back from Thailand, and like, do they know that I had just come back from Thailand? Do they suspect me from smuggling anything, or like what's going on? Did I not get my like enough change back from the toll booth guy? I have no idea what's going on. Yeah. So they have me pull over to the very like side of the road, and like this is kind of a busy highway, and cars are like, you know, the traffic's easing up, so cars are starting to go faster. Wind's blowing through everybody's hair. I roll my window down, and in Japanese he says something, and I'm like, what? Like, nani? And he's like, sono antenna is like, and he goes like this. He does like a little dangly thing. So I had this antenna on the side of my car that knowingly was a little loose, and it came out in like a little module, and the module was like kind of loose like that, hanging off the side of my car. It's hard to do like a description of this, but there was just like a spinny thing going around in loops that was screwed into my car, so it could have fallen off. And they were like, What? How are you gonna fix this? What are you gonna do? Like, you
What's
can't
your plan
drive.
of action?
What's your plan? You can't drive
you need your
like
3-month steps to get back to inserts.
So they're like, so they get me out of the car. We're all looking at it, and we were like, "Doshokana," and it's all like we're all silently looking at each other, like, "Doshokana." What are we gonna do?
I can picture this perfectly. Yeah.
And I'm like,
"Yeah,
teipu arimasu ka?" And they're like, "Oh, okay." So one of the guys runs back into the station, and he grabs the tape. It takes him like a few minutes to find it. And this police guy is like telling me in like pretty easy Japanese, which I thank him for. He's like, it's really dangerous. You need to know all the bad parts about your car before you're going to drive. And the guy comes back with the tape, and like they're taping it up for me. Like there's like 3 police guys like handing tape one to another, and like another guy's like blocking traffic, and I'm like, oh my God, this is like absolutely perfect. Okay. And then they make this huge like tape stick thing so it doesn't fall off. And the police officer's like, okay, where are you going? And I'm like, okay, I'm going to my town near Kumamoto City. And he's like, you got to get this done immediately. And then I'm like, okay, well, actually, I'm going back to America for a few weeks. And yeah, and he's like, well, get this done as soon as possible.
Oh my.
And I didn't get it fixed for another like month and a half.
Yeah.
So I was driving around the town with like this huge green tape blob on the side of my car. This was just after I had like my tail light was out, so I put the red duct tape. Ike, I don't know if you remember that. I put red duct tape.
I remember that.
On my back light. Like, oh my God. As soon as I started,
your car was a mess.
I noticed students making fun of my tape glob on the side of my car, so then I got it fixed.
That's when you realized.
But the police were actually, like, I was scared for a little bit that they were pulling me over for something nefarious and even narcotic, which I wasn't doing and had no possession of at the time. But, you know, it's always scary when you have an encounter with the police and you don't know why, you know?
Yeah. I don't have any police stories, but I do have the perfect segue.
Yeah?
Our Discord question of the week.
What? Discord question of the week?
Someone asked, because they said, besides driving on the other side, the left side of the road, when you're learning how to drive in Japan, what else took you some time to get used to? So I know one thing that the police definitely mentioned to Matthew was, you know, make sure your car's all fixed. Like, you have to do stuff immediately. The mistake I made when driving was not turning my lights on, because I'm so used to my car being automatic, right? So in the U.S., I always had a car. The lights would just no. The lights would just always turn on when I'd get in, And so for the longest time, first time I did it, Quinn luckily saved my car battery from dying because he saw my lights were on and went to get me and was like,
the
you
parking
have to
light.
manually. That's what I'm getting to,
the
though.
Parking light.
So when I would start driving, though, I always thought, okay, I turned my lights on. I would flick the little switch. I would not flick it enough, so only my parking lights would go on. So the overhead lights never showed. So basically, I'd be driving around, and I'd really be like, man, it's really hard to see, you know? Like, I'm in these dark, like, Inaka. I'm in these dark Inaka roads, and, like, I'm about to fly off into a rice paddy and, like, die or something.
There could be an Inoshishi crossing the road. You'd never know.
Yeah, and literally, I was always like, man, these lights just must be, like, really dim or something. But it took me... It took me regrettably more than 3 months to realize, and it was only, I think, because of our friends, like Bethany and Paige and stuff, they realized because I was driving behind them one day, and they kept trying to alert me with their lights that my lights were not on. And I thought they were just like, oh, like, hi, like being friendly in the car. And so it wasn't until we got there, they're like, Ike, you never turned your lights on. And I was like, what? I was like, they were on the whole time. And it was then I realized that I had to do one extra switch every time I turned my car on to get the lights. So
you're too busy listening to YouTube music on your little speaker.
You know, if the Deskwarmers were out, I would have been listening to that. So.
Yes, you would have.
Yes.
Like, comment,
that
and
was
subscribe.
definitely the hardest. That was the hardest thing for me to get accustomed to.
Sure.
With driving, but
for me, it always takes me some time with the wipers. You know, so we go back like every year, and so I'll be able to. I still get an international permit.
Yeah.
But driving is just always like, all right, I'm gonna turn. I don't want the wipers to go up. Oh, and so I always forget which side to do the wipers.
It's a very immediate like moment of failure. Like, you know, immediately as soon as and it's such like a simple like flip. Like, am I flipping left or am I flipping right?
It'll keep happening too. Like,
it'll keep it. You're not gonna learn it there. It's gonna keep subconsciously coming out, and you're just like, oh, dang it.
And then when you get back, you're doing the same thing, just
switch
opposite.
back up.
So
there's always that
so funny.
A little bit of a customary period, getting used to it, but.
Let's see. Getting used to other things about driving, I'm thinking like the speed, like the lower speed. Oh my gosh! At least in like the towns, the Inaka, like there's a lot of random stoplights. At least in our town, like it wasn't the most Inaka of Inaka, middle of nowhere place. Like it was a smallish city, but like we had a lot of stoplights and a very low speed limit. So I always found it very troublesome getting anywhere in a car just because it would take so long because you're constantly waiting at like timed stoplights, not like pressure plate. Like if someone's coming from like a small road, like then they trick the pressure plate, then they go. Like, no, it's like that road gets the same amount of time as like the main road gets, which always annoys me.
Yeah.
And it doesn't change at night either. So even at night when there's no cars on the road, you'll still have to wait there the whole time. I know I ran a red light with you, Matthew, on accident once.
I do remember that.
It was like nighttime, and we stopped, and I saw out of the corner of my eye, I saw a flash, and so I thought the light had changed to green. And I just zoomed through the intersection.
Yeah, we
and
were
Matthew
having a
was
conversation.
Like, what are you doing?
I'm like,
Matthew's like, what are
wait
you
a minute,
doing?
hold on.
He's like, what's going on? And it was like the crosswalk had like lit up or something, and I think my full concentration wasn't on like forward, and so I saw it, and I was like, okay, I can go now. And it took me a minute to even realize why Matthew was upset, because I was like, I thought I was just totally like fine, you know, but. I mean, it was pretty late at night, so no one was around. But
luckily.
I just flew through the intersection, full red.
Yeah.
After a complete stop too. It wasn't like I just flew through it. I was stopped.
Just started going.
Yeah, I just started going. So, but it happens. So there's definitely some things we haven't. None of our guests have really felt like there's been too much like culture shock, though. I feel like we haven't heard that many people that are like severely affected
by
culture shock?
Well, for me, I always had the feeling of, this actually kind of came up in my interview where they were like, what would you do, or how would you feel going to a different place where you don't speak the language? And I was like, well, I'm Mexican American, so I grew up like, I always never felt American. Like here, I was like, hey, there's that Mexican boy Javier, and then I would be like, all right, I'm Mexican. Then I would be like, we're gonna go to Mexico. Great, I go to Mexico, and they're like, hey, there's the American boy Javier, and I was just like, what? So there's this saying in Spanish that says, ni de aquí ni de allá, which means not from here nor from there. So, going over to Japan was actually kind of nice because I didn't have to try to be Japanese, right? Yeah. I didn't have that feeling of like, of course I'm a foreigner. Yes, I'm a foreigner. Yes, I'm a foreigner, but I'm Mexican American. Let me tell you about my culture, kind of thing. And so kind of going with that attitude, it was kind of easygoing, or a little bit easier for me to kind of stay. And probably one of the reasons why I lasted 5 years, being there. But
there was another Discord question that was, I can't remember what it said completely off the top of my head, but it was talking about advice on how to kind of be more like a local. I think this is in the context of rising tourism rates in Japan and kind of people getting a little aggravated at tourists. So I know this. I completely understand the want to like kind of make sure other Japanese people know that like, hey, you're a resident rather than a tourist, especially when you're in a larger city like Tokyo or Kyoto, where pretty much everyone who isn't Japanese is a tourist. And I completely understand that. But like what you're talking about is like, it's good to be kind of that other, I guess.
Yeah, one thing that I kind of felt where they were trying, or, in Japan, they're very, just Japanese, right? They'll be like, oh, you're American. Okay, where are you from? And just say, California or, the U.S., but there's so many Americans, right? Mexican American, even Asian Americans, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just with that, I was just like, all right, I'm gonna tell you about my culture because you probably don't know about it. Like, I even taught a Mexican cooking class to in our local town. So
much needed.
Cool.
Much needed.
We needed more Mexican food.
We needed more Mexican food.
Yes. Yeah. So, they even got me on a radio station to kind of promote it, and we had a bunch. It was a little community center, so I went and taught them how to make Mexican rice. We made quesadillas, which the hard part was sourcing ingredients, but and when they want a recipe, they want like the exact measurements, and that's not how I cook. So it was very hard.
The milliliters.
Yes. Even when my mom came to visit, I had her come and teach a class.
That's cool.
So that's so cool. It was really.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was, again, part of my community service where I was like, all right, you think I'm such a terrible person. I want to give back to the community and just, teach them about my culture.
Well,
so that run-in with the police really kind of amped up your involvement in the community.
Yeah.
But from my perspective too, like still going off that question as well, is we're there to spread other cultures, right? We're not actually trying to become Japanese with our time there. We're trying to be that bridge between different countries was one thing. But also I feel like, especially if you're not in a big city, I know there's a lot of tourism in like Tokyo, Osaka, like all those bigger ones, but where we were, very rural area, there's not, foreigners just coming through. And so we're never, like, we're always going to be kind of like recognized, right? We might be recognized as a local just from us being seen around so much once we've been there for, a year or more. But I do think it makes you special, right? Because like you were saying too, Javier, the amount of, Mexican American, Asian Americans, just like the amount of people that are similar to us in the areas we live, is very high. But when we go to Japan, there's a lot less of us. And so that really makes us stand out more, which to me was always fun because a lot of people that I would never have the chance to interact with would come up to me, right? Wanting to, learn more about me or wanting to just hear my story. And so it really makes you feel, like you belong, but also special in that way was something that I really appreciated with my time in Japan. So,
and to kind of take the, but I do want to be more local. Like I do want to act like I'm other than the tourists. Because like I said, I completely understand that sentiment. I do this all the time. I think about this all the time. If you ever find yourself in a situation where someone is like obviously like mad at you, not like mad at you, or they're just like a little aggravated that like they think you're a tourist and like, they don't want to deal with you. And like you come up asking a question, a good way to like alleviate that kind of situation is just you gotta learn some Japanese. You gotta offer like, oh hey, like I understand, we're gonna bring this to Japanese conversation, not me trying to force English on you. Because what a lot of people who are maybe not scared of tourists, but what a lot of people who get a little aggravated with tourists is because they don't really want to be speaking English because they don't know English, and they don't really want to get themselves into a conversation where they have to speak English because it's kind of it's like surprising. I understand that. So
For sure.
a good way to dissuade that situation.
To add on to that, I would say like wherever you're placed, there's going to be a local dialect, right? There's kumamoto ben, where if you throw out some kumamoto ben, they're going to be like, oh, okay,
one of us.
It'll be like, oh, I could joke around with this. They're local, at least. So there'll be like a local dialect where.
For sure. So, I'd love to close out this session with a plug, but two, some poetry.
Whoa.
I know. So Javier found us, the Deskwarmers, one of our grand predecessors. He found us on our Kumamoto yoka, and the yoka was put on by our prefectural advisors or was it put on by KumaJet actually? Which one was it? No, it was the prefectural advisors because they would send out the email.
Yeah.
And so they would encourage everyone in Kumamoto Prefecture, all the different ALTs, to submit works of art they did, poetry, photography, short stories, things of that nature. And so Matthew
all
made
combined.
A post about
it's a magazine. It comes out quarterly.
Yeah, 4 times a year, seasonally. For the seasons.
The 4 seasons,
which
so
Japan
Matthew
has and no one else has.
No other country has 4 seasons. Yeah, impossible. Matthew made a post about the Deskwarmers, and we have encouraged people to sign up as well. Not only if you're from our prefecture, but just anyone that watches our podcast, is interested in Japan, has lived in Japan, current JET alumni. Anyone that's really interested, we'd love to have you on as a guest and talk to you directly about your experiences. But I did submit a haiku, winter 2023.
Oh my gosh. To the yoka.
And so it's titled Warming.
No way.
As Deskwarming. So this is before, way before the time, right? Way before the time.
He predicted it.
All right. The passing moments, they thrive where others cannot. Ones who ignore time.
Oh my God. That was beautiful. Think about that. Listeners,
you can reflect on that.
Reflect. that may have just changed my life. I'm so shocked. I'm so shocked.
Do I need to read it one more time?
No. We're fine. I think we're actually, time is a little. How much time we got left?
Yeah.
It's about. We're getting up there.
Javier, any last shout outs, call outs from you? We loved having you on today.
No, I just want to say I love what you guys are doing. Keep it up. Like I said, I'm really big fan. And so I you don't know how many times I've been driving, listening to you guys and be like, oh yeah, no, I need to add to, I would love to add to that. And then I just thought I'd share my story. I had my own, and I thought I don't know, just
pass it on.
Great to speak to you.
Yeah. Well, Javier, when you emailed us and did our interest form, it was really exciting to see, like, hey, someone else from our town, like they know all the same stuff we know, connected with.
I know Makoto-san.
From the bar.
Campanule.
Yes. So,
I was actually thinking earlier in this podcast when we were talking about run-ins with the police, the several times, that we didn't pay leaving Campanule, because I've talked about that in the past. And Makoto-san might be one of the few Japanese people that would not call the police on us.
Yes.
He would just wait, knowing that we would be back next week, and then say, oh, by the way, you have to pay up 1,000 yen, But, I mean, we've heard from Bethany and several other, I think, past guests of just how, walking out with a cup of kombini ice and getting the police called on you. So, people have been arrested for less, I will say that. So,
Makoto-san would never call the police on us. Also, Moritaka-san.
Yeah. So we can appreciate those people as well.
Yeah.
But. Well,
all right. I think that's it, right?
Matthew and I are back with the weekly uploads, we hope. So
we're back.
We're excited for more Deskwarmers content.
Yeah, Javier, thanks for coming on. It was a pleasure.
Oh, much appreciated.
Yeah. Thank you, Javier.
Bye.
Sayonara, guys.
Bye-bye.